Hi, I hope you're having a great day today. So I want to talk today about IT consultants and specifically vCIOs, that lovely acronym that we like to use. Now, a vCIO, if you're not familiar with the term, is somebody who sits with your management team and helps them make good technology decisions. It is not, as many MSPs seem to think, an account manager who goes and sells stuff. So if you've got your vCIO coming in and selling you solutions, that's not what you need. What you need instead, you need somebody who's going to sit with the board and go, how do you feel about how AI works in your business? What opportunities are there in business? What risks are there? What are you doing to mitigate the cybersecurity risks? High level stuff, and then we'll work our way back down through the technology. What's the biggest opportunity that we have at the moment? And the biggest risk. You may think you could train someone in your team to do this, but having somebody that's worked in lots of different industries, for loads and loads of different businesses, is going to be much more valuable. So you need to look at bringing somebody in who's got a wealth of experience around management, around sales, marketing, finance, all of those things, but really focusing on the technology, obviously. So I hope that's of some use and gets you thinking about what the role of a vCIO might be for your business. I want to talk about how I acquired a vampire business. Many years ago, we were getting all these requests for PC repair, and we were working with a charity who helped people get back into work, who would be long-term unemployed because of disability, and they'd been doing this PC repair training program. And the person that's teaching this, he said, you know what, I'd quite like to create a PC repair company. And I said, well, that's great. We've got spare office space. You can come and work from us, and that's great because we've got loads of leads we can give you. So he ran that for about a year. And he said, this is just taking up too much of my time, it's not really working, I don't really have time to do this, you can have the business. So, great. So I acquired the PC repair business to go alongside my managed IT business, and it was very quickly evident that it was going to just sink my time, because even though the team were fairly self-sufficient, there were so many just random home user management queries that ended up coming to me to deal with problems, queries. And what I learned very quickly was, when you're in a business-to-business industry and you start doing business-to-consumer, it's a very different market, and it just used up way too much of my time. So I went, well, that's it, we'll get rid of this. But what I learned from doing that was, if you're running a business where you're constantly having to dip in to manage stuff, not because the team are incompetent, not because there isn't processes and procedures, but because it's too complicated, that's not a great business. Ideally, you want a business where it will work whether you're there or not. And that's not always plausible. There's always going to be problems, and there's always things that you just can't fix. I think simplifying the business is really important. So in terms of what I do nowadays, most of my time is spent managing, encouraging, leading, making these videos to share my knowledge, both with more junior techie people and with managers like yourself. But when you find those problems in your business that are just sinking your time, that are very, very bespoke and require lots of complex interactions, that's a sign that you need to strip that bit out of your business, because it's not scalable. If you want to scale and grow your business, you need to eliminate all the exceptions. Think about, how can I simplify what I'm doing to make it easier? A lot of businesses have been looking at artificial intelligence. So many opportunities to use AI to be more successful in the short and the long term. Whatever you do, you need to have a policy. Now, I've got a policy that I've created, initial attempts at this for small businesses. You need to pick somebody in your organization to be in charge of managing the AI. You want to make sure that you're not just saying, no, we're not using artificial intelligence because it's too dangerous for the business. That's stupid. What we do need to do, though, is make sure that we have a policy that makes it very clear. Do not upload clients' confidential information, phone numbers, etc., names and addresses to these systems, not without speaking to IT. Do not upload our IP to these systems, because once it's in their system, you're not going to be able to get it back out again. So people need to understand that. Okay, let's look at the opportunities. So at the moment, with ChatGPT, which is the main way that people are looking at AI right at this second, you can get it to write stuff. I found this graph online I'll share with you. What was interesting is, for some people, when they used artificial intelligence, the quality of their work went down. For some people, it went up. I think what you have to do is think of it like a tool, obviously, but it's not going to do everything for you. If you say, write this letter, it's not going to do a very good job. But if you give it a draft of what you want, I'm a big fan. I dictate stuff into Otter AI. I ask ChatGPT to tidy it up into a document. That works really well. Or a table, or a form, or some computer code. It will do all those things. But what doesn't work very well, if you just ask it to arbitrarily create something. When we're seeing other types of AI come on board now, like the creative tools, we can see, like We can have AI that will create videos. We have AI that can create architecture and maybe even down to the nuts and bolts. So all of that stuff that was technically really difficult and required lots of years of experience, a lot of that, the basics will be done by AI in the future. But that brings you to your opportunities because you can create more marketing content. You're not limited by your imagination. All you're limited by is picking something from the opportunity. But like everything, like architecture is a great example. What we really want is a building that looks like it's always been there. It's cool and easy to use. And that requires skill. And AI is a long way from that yet because AI can't create anything new. So coming back to this risk thing, your team should absolutely be looking at how AI is going to be used in the future, how you can use it now. Do you want to have a chatbot on your website? What's that going to look like? But also moderate that because there's nothing more frustrating than a human trying to talk to a computer and not realizing they're talking to a computer and the computer's doing a terrible job of communicating. So you do need to bring it back. Like with all technology, you need to understand it before you really push it really hard. So get a team together, start looking at how you can use it effectively in your business. But don't stop people using it, but do try and get their feedback of what they're doing, how they're using it, what's going well, and make sure you're not sending really generic emails out that were clearly created by ChatGPT, because that's not going to help anyone. So there's a lot to think about really, but I do think you need to think really hard about what kind of policy you want. And please make sure it's in English. Make sure it's a policy that empowers people to make good decisions, but do think you're empowering people, you're not disabling them. I want to share a story with you today about a company I work with. It's probably over a decade, maybe longer ago now. And they had a problem. What was happening was they were cycling to try and find a solution to a problem. So they were trying to do it in-house and they were trying to outsource it and they couldn't quite get to grips with what they needed. Now nowadays this is called COMIT, co-managed IT services. And there is a point where it makes sense to have somebody on site, probably not that small nowadays, but certainly we're into hundreds of people. You want to have somebody on site to deal with the basic computer stuff, setting up projectors, plugging in PCs, because it can get very expensive having a consultant come in to do that. So what do we do instead? Well, I think we have to acknowledge the fact that there's more cost-effective and cheaper ways of doing stuff, and that's fine. But if you're a rapidly growing business, I would suggest that using a managed service provider will work out cheaper, and don't worry about the fact that you're paying for people on site. If you're very static and you're not growing very quickly, then I think it does make sense that you bring some of this stuff in-house because you know what your requirements look like and you can find those people. But I would probably bring in-house the junior person and leave the rest to managed service provider, and then maybe bring in some, with the managed service provider offers it, if not, bring in some kind of strategic technology leadership person at the top end if you don't have that in your leadership team already. A much better way in my mind of going about solving the problem is to eliminate the problems in the first place. So if you've got a team of people and they're spending a lot of time on Outlook issues, find the root cause, eliminate the issues. It could be that they need user training, it could be that the machines are too slow, it could be there's a configuration error. And working with your managed service provider, however good or bad they are, they should be doing this stuff. The only reason to change, and most people don't change managed service providers by the way, the only good reason to change is if they're not technically competent enough to do what you need, or I suppose if they're too expensive. You could pay for like a top end managed service provider who are really good, really fast, but you're paying a premium for that. Maybe that's not what you need to cut costs, so you've got to look at the next tier down. But I digress. The point with this company was they weren't doing any of those things. What they were doing is they were chopping and changing to try and find a solution to the problem. So this insourcing, outsourcing cycle where they thought, we're better if we have somebody in-house because we can train them up, we can manage them. We're better if we outsource it, it'll be cheaper and they know what they're doing better. Oh no, we're better if we bring it in-house because it'll save us money. And the problem with this cycle is it does nothing to benefit the business, it just eats up management time. So if you're in a team where, as a leader, you're thinking about changing your IT provider or insourcing some of the work or outsourcing some of the work, before you do any of that, try and work out what is the problem that you're trying to solve. So are you using technology to grow the business? Is the technology stable and reliable? And are you sweating the assets? When you're in that situation where you're thinking about changing the way that you structure it, think very hard, are you actually going to get any business benefits from doing this? Because change, while I'm a big fan of change and improvement, change can be quite expensive if it doesn't deliver what you need. So before you start swapping and changing things around, have a look at the holistic thing around what you're doing. Do we get the service that we need at the moment? Is it cost effective? It's not necessarily cheaper to spend less money. But I just want to get you thinking about, how do I structure my IT management team and the service delivery team to get the best possible results? Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments.